All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5 o'clock session with George Berger, who is a professor over at Rutgers doing game design. And he is going to kick off a show and tell on making pixel art for lightweight games. Welcome, George.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you.
All right. Well, tonight we are going to be doing hopefully two things. It depends on how interested we are in the first. So, first off, we're going to be working on some player avatar creation. We're working at pixel resolution. If you'd like to get a base file to work with, you can find it in the description section just under the video. It's a small PSD, 64 by 64 pixels. So just be ready to zoom in. Let's get moving.
Let's do this.
So the first thing you're going to want to make sure you do is make sure you're not on brush, but instead on pencil. The pencil tool is the only thing you're going to need when it comes to pixel art until you're adding a little bit of sass right at the very end. And for our work, you need to work at 1 pixel by 1 pixel. So it really is all you need. Now, what you see before you here is what I like to call a blank. So when I'm working for games, and I know that we're going to have multiple character designs throughout the game, but it has to all fit within the same context, I make a character blank. Right here, you see a little box that gives me a little bit of wiggle room. So I'll know that if I go outside this first barrier, it's going to be a wide or tall character. But the design can't go outside the far edge of this box. That's because when you're playing a game with a character and the character has to have certain hitbox detections and things like that over the course of gameplay, the size of the avatar itself is very important. So what we have here is the basest of the base. I'm going to go to my file that has a little bit more in it just to give you a little bit of context. Let's take a look at the Eldritch Bone Knight. So this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be pushing toward from this blank. You'll see inside this file, we have legs, kind of a torso and shoulder section, head, the forward arm, and the back arm. The reason we have them separated like this is because for lightweight games, a lot of times simple idle animations and fluctuations in character scope are being done by the programmer. So you can see the very beginning of an idle animation is as simple as taking the head and moving it up and down. So when you separate the bits and pieces like this, it gives you a little bit more control over your work, but also it gives you a chance to work in areas that will overlap during the course of segment shift. Eventually, you'll be able to take your file and do some turnarounds, the front-facing and the back-facing version of the avatar. But for tonight, we're just focusing on our side-facing piece. So let's get this blank back up here. Now, what I've done is I've given you all the layers. You'll see that I have the example legs, the example torso and shoulders, the example head, the forward arm, which I'm calling shield, because in all cases for this game, it is a shield, and the back arm, which is sword. I've also created duplicate layers on top of each one of those for you to do your actual work in. So when you're doing character design, in a lot of situations, you want to make sure that you are focusing on the clarity and the visibility of your forms. So I always start with the head because the head is sort of like the base of the character. So I'm going to turn off all the other layers and we're going to go in here and start thinking of how we want this character to look. So I'm going to take this template layer and turn it way down in opacity. Turn on our blank layer above it and start drawing. If you're looking for the download, it's actually a little Google Drive link right there above the Enter to Win. Also, Enter to Win. You should do
that. Yes. Yes,
all good. All good. All right. So I'm going to start with a simple black because I'm going to work in lines. In pixel art, you don't always have to have a containing line. But for the style of this game, it kind of fit and it keeps things readable. So I'm going to do sort of a line drawing or sketch first, and then fill it in with color and make it feel correct. So I'm going to use our base head shape here at the front because I want this to have a kind of a normal mask here. And then I'm going to start embellishing once we get here. So normally I would do a high-res drawing to get us moving in the right direction, to kind of get my ideas out there. But sometimes it's fun to sort of freeform and just kind of shoot from the hip and see where you get. Now, the other characters in this game, as you can see, are designed to have, you know, kind of face-platey knight masks and, you know, chunks of armor and cool shields. So in keeping with that, I'm going to give him a little mask. It's going to come up like this. It's going to go over the eyes. This is the general eye shape here. And I'm going to make it just kind of a little point like that. Let's even bring that point down a little further. Your eraser tool also should be set to pencil mode. You can find that up here in the upper left, just under select and filter. The pencil mode will let you erase in pixels, just like your drawing. So we're going to follow the typical helmet line. And I think this guy might need some horns. Make him stand out, make him kind of interesting. So if this is the back of the head here, I'm going to start here. And I'm just going to give him just crazy, like kind of straight line horns, which is hard to pull off correctly when you're doing pixel art because of the side-by-side rule for pixel art, which means, very importantly, when you're doing outlines like this and you want to keep the line crisp and clear, you want to stop yourself in as many cases as possible from doing, you know, side-by-side lines. Like you see how this is directly adjacent squares here. It feels chunky, it feels kind of thick, it feels kind of gross. So when you're doing your line work, especially in diagonals, you want to do point to point, not side by side. There are certain situations like where elements meet up, like the mask on the bottom of the helmet, where that's not feasible, just like the tip of the horn here. But in general, you want to keep the line nice and crisp. So as you see here, I'm faced with a decision. I could either cut over this way, which is where the head shape would normally cut, and that gives us a lot of clutter here. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to draw my line straight up and let the brain kind of make that connection where it wants. Same with the top of the head here. And then we have a point where it's going to have to be a little bit muddy right there. Actually, you know what? That feels kind of nice. There are situations where the side-by-side does feel okay, but a general rule. Now, the real trick is drawing that back horn and making it feel like it's supposed to be there. And for me, it's just a little ear. It's like he's got like rabbit ears on. Is there any specific situation where you should or should not use outlines? Oh, 100%. The outline is not a hard rule at all. You should always kind of work the way that feels comfortable for you. In a lot of pixel art styles, there are no outlines at all. It's just form and shape and highlight. For the sake of being a beginner pixel artist, though, using the outline helps you sort of imagine your shapes a little more quickly and get things in place with more speed. Once you advance a little bit, adding you know, straight color and working over an actual sketch could be the way to go. All right, so he's starting to look a little kawaii, which I think I'm okay with. We're gonna make a cute little knight. And I am 100% on board with that. So we have the basic outline for the head. I'm going to give this little guy smaller eyes than our standard 3 pixel height. Make it feel a little more kind of sleepy. And then I'm going to take this background head template away and leave just our outlines. Now we're going to start with just outlines, and we're going to hit color in a moment. So let's move on to the top. Yeah, some of the best pixel art that I've ever seen done, and some of my favorite that I've worked on, has been sort of light outline or colored outline, where you don't use black, you use colors that are sort of adjacent and darker than the overall tone. It's kind of how Disney does it with their lines. So you see here, this is sort of an amorphous blob. When you look at it in context of the head, it certainly starts to feel a little more like shoulders and a chest plate in the beginning of an arm. And for our purposes, that is going to be involved in the idle animation like this, just bobbing up and down 1 pixel. So we're giving our drawing a little bit of space behind the head, a little overlap of art, because things are going to be kind of shifting back and forth.
Hey, George, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do, but it's a bit sparse. I've been working professionally for so long that I haven't really maintained a social presence.
Yeah.
I teach professionally. I teach at Rutgers University, game design, a lot of theory stuff, and I kind of get my streaming done there, especially since COVID.
Yeah, I bet.
But honestly, I've been looking to stream a bit more, put up some more videos. I have a little bit of speed drawing on there. I
So
do love
what
the teaching
is
process.
do you have it off the top of your head so people can? We have a comment of somebody asking if you have one.
I don't know. I don't remember. I haven't touched it in so long.
You're like, okay.
Actually,
I would
no,
say
here it
let's
is.
check back in a little bit. That's funny.
Yeah,
You
let's
gotta
check back
put
in a
some.
little bit.
You gotta put some stuff on there. You can start with this.
Yeah, I'm here to show a little bit about pixel art. If you're asking about self promotion, I'm not the guy to talk to. I have managed that terribly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's move on to this top part. So we're going to start with the shoulder. So we've gone a little bit cutesy here, and I think I'm going to stick with that. So instead of having a big beefy shoulder plate, I'm going to give him like kind of a smaller, more slim sort of curve here. Yeah, I like that. Give him a little elbow and keep with this lower arm line, just because I know that's where things are eventually going to go when it comes to the overlaying arm piece. So now we've done away with our shoulder pad, which means, when you're working on a template, you don't always have to follow the silhouette of your template perfectly. You have a lot of room to kind of wiggle to make your character feel right. Now that we've passed the head here, I'm going to go ahead and keep drawing my lines. I'm going to turn the head down a little bit so we can see our work a little better. And move up. Oh, I'm in the wrong layer. Move up and imagine this as sort of the back of your shoulder, the part that goes right past the bump in the back of your spine before it goes from spine to neck. That's what this little hump is here. And then we're going to come back down for the arm and do the same thing. Now, they're holding a shield out, so imagine you're putting your elbow out like that, and kind of like holding it out. So this little dude is all elbow right here. And then we're not going to finish the arm because the majority of this silhouette will be covered by the shield itself. So we'll bring it back here and start imagining what the rest of our shape is going to look like. So again, this isn't the full arm. This is just sort of a back layer of the arm that the front arm shape lays over. So with an adorable little head like this, I think we need a vest. This guy feels like a vest character to me. So do one of those. Actually, I'll start here. And this can go straight up. And we can give him a cheeky little V-neck here. Now, this is a little hard to read before the color is added. But as you see, as horizontal, as diagonal lines are being moved up more, further, it becomes an issue of counting your dots. So if I want this to be even straighter, I take that, center little dot out, and then, even straighter. So when you're trying to draw slopes and angles and diagonal lines with pixel art, it's very much like building in Minecraft. You're counting your blocks, you're counting your pixels out as you go, and you're connecting them until the line feels like it's going in the right direction without being chunky, without doing that side-by-side pixel issue. I almost never just take my pencil and drag it, because that always creates, ugly lines. It's pixel by pixel. You're dropping it in as you go. So even though it doesn't look that way, trust me, this is a vest and it will look great when we're done. I'm going to cut it off right here. And we're going to leave this open a little here so we have some space. I might even get rid of this line here to give us a little more space in the vest. I think I like that. All right, so we have our head and our lines for our top. So let's move to our legs. Now you see the top is overlaid like he's leaning forward. You know, his top section is shifted forward a bit, which isn't necessarily always the way it has to be. You can move the bottom around a little bit and give him a little more of an upward stance. And I think for this one, that's what we'll do. So let's decrease the opacity on our guide layer again. And I'm going to give him very simple legs. We're going to make him a little smaller feet here. Now we're going to have some chunky lines. Good question. I've tried to pixel art for my own games, but I usually draw illustrations, so it's hard to simplify things down. Any tips on how to shrink down characters into 16 by 16 or 32 by 32? Ah, yes, that's a tough one. It's almost a question of mental training. So when you're in a situation where you're trying to take a larger scale animation and turn it into something really simple like this, especially if you're going 16 by 16, like this is a 24 by 24, because we're not really constraining ourselves to the typical block size of an actual pixel art game. The way this game looks, and I probably should have shown you this. Where are you? There it is. So this is actually, you know, pixel sprites in a 3D dungeon. The 3D dungeon is skinned with more pixel art. So we have a little more flexibility in terms of pixel to pixel ratio and, you know, comparisons within the actual style. But, you know, when you're shrinking things down, a great example would be, let's get the Bone Knight down and we'll do one of the baddies, the Armored Wanderer in this game. He's a nice little typical skeleton layout. I used the base skeleton as the starting point, and I based him on an illustration right here. Now you see what I've done is I've taken the zones of this design, blocks of gray, blocks of light gray, the bone blocks, and I've sort of imagined them as, you know, targeted sections in the design. So doing the same thing that I was doing with the layers, so the head, the shoulders, the shield, the back arm, and I sort of shrink down my images into really super simple shapes and focus, again, like we're doing with the rest of this, on, you know, zones at a time. So if you're not like working on your character as a whole, thinking of it as an illustration, you can take your illustration in parts, break it down, and really zoom in and focus on each piece until it makes sense to you, and then move on.
Here's another question for you. Well, first of all, a comment that they've learned a lot so far. So your teaching style is fantastic, and hopefully someday in the near future, you will stream and make more videos. So there, put that on your to-do list. Question from Yorugami is, what is your advice for keeping your outline pixels clean?
So we have, can they hear you or no?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as keeping the pixels clean, when you're working at really small sizes, it becomes extremely difficult. Because you see what I'm doing here is I'm making a lot of sacrifices in terms of form just to make sure that I get things where they want to be. Like I would love to have this leg sort of tilted a little more, like he's got his knee up, but that gets us to kind of an awkward place. It's not terrible, but now you see, well, you know what, I actually kind of like that. But no, it still feels a little awkward. So one part of keeping your lines nice and clean in pixel art is going to be making sacrifices where you need to. A lot of times people end up getting really muddy lines when they're sort of forcing their design to fit into a more complicated pose that they had kind of pre-imagined going into the artwork. If you're giving yourself, if you're strong enough to sort of like step away from your art and think, okay, maybe this isn't going to work, I have to kind of alter this a little bit to make it feel like it fits, and give yourself access to these more diagonal lines here, you're going to have a lot more chances to make your lines feel clean. Again, if you weren't here earlier, this doesn't work. Just drawing a straight line like this, again, it's counting. And it's always, you know, corner to corner, edge to edge, but never this, because that looks gross.
Huh, interesting. Okay, another question. Okay, quick question on what is the size of your canvas?
So I use everything. Okay, actually, that's a great question, and it is it has a reasoning behind it. So the second piece of this, and if we don't get to this here, maybe I will just stream on Twitch and do the rest of this. But the second piece of this is working on walls. As you saw in the larger image of the game, these little cubes, and this is an earlier version of the game. The current live version is a lot cleaner than this. But you see these are cubes, and each side of the cube is skinned with a square of wall. And the wall designs are basically just squares of texture. Each square is 64 by 64. And I use that specifically because that works very well for 3D models. 64 by 64 would be good for a 64-bit pixel art game, but we're sort of presenting these as lower pixel in the game itself. So what I've done is I've built a 64 by 64 canvas with a target that brings it down to 24 by 24. It lets me kind of see things in the context of the surrounding area. But you also always want to work in powers of 2 for the sake of enlarging at the end, which I'll explain here in a moment.
So is that what goes into deciding what pixel resolution you want to use?
Yeah, well, there are classic pixel resolutions. 32-bit is well known, 16-bit is well known, 64-bit. I like 64-bit because if I really, really want to just like sweat the hell out of this image, I have a little more space if I want to. It lets me cheat, which is just not okay, but I do it all the time anyways. It's a little easier for me when I give myself some breathing room. So a lot of times I make an internal workspace that is smaller inside a larger workspace for that very reason. But also you want to make sure that your workspaces are sort of uniform across an entire project, because then you end up getting elements that have smaller looking pixels as compared to other elements in the arena around it. So if you're making a 64-bit art project, everything has to revolve around that 64-bit canvas. If you're doing 24-bit, 24-bit canvas has to be your standard. And if you're fudging things like I am with 3D with pixel art, you can do whatever the heck you want. It's sort of open for interpretation. All right, so let's zoom in here. We're going to take a step back and look at just the head again and create a new layer under the line work and start working with color. Now, I haven't put a truly like adorable character. Well, there's one, it's a cat. But this will be my second adorable character. So I want to go with just like absurd, like cutesy. I'm gonna make a pink mask. Or
it looks like a pig nose right now.
Right now it does, and it will stop looking at it very soon, I promise.
Have you ever used Aseprite?
Yes. Now, the reason I don't use Aseprite or any of the other pixel programs that are designed for this is they're not quite as flexible. Like, should the needs of the project change at any point, you're still stuck in true pixel. You can't work around corners, because in most situations now in modern times, we are absolutely not working towards like hardware that needs these pixels to work, right? Like, it's not a 64-bit console we're delivering towards. So releasing that flexibility has always felt really unnecessarily limiting to me. So I work in Photoshop because it's designed to deliver for a lot of different platforms. It's easy to sort of spit the art out in any way you want, but also it lets me use my gradients if I want to. It lets me enlarge things in different ways. It just feels more flexible. But there's certainly a case to be made for some of these more standard pixel programs.
And do you have any pixel art drawing apps for mobile devices that you recommend?
I do not, actually. I'm super duper old school when it comes to my programs. I like to stick with some things that feel good and not shake the boat too much. When you get into phone app art, it sort of starts to limit you in little ways here and there, and you start to learn bad habits based on tablet drawing. Right now I'm sitting on the Sense Labs tablet. It's nice and smooth, it's clean, I have a lot of control, I have a lot of settings I can play with. I'm not learning bad habits with finger drawing essentially.
Right.
I like to make darn sure that I am not giving myself training in the wrong direction anytime I do work. So now you can see it's starting to feel a little more like a character. And now I'm going to break away from the black line for the eyes. I think we're going to go blue. Blue feels right. Or maybe a little purple to fit that pink better. Blue feels right. Oop. That's on the head layer. There we go. So we have our first almost complete little bit of colored artwork. I've settled on simple highlights because I don't want to muddy up the image too much. This is being seen at a very small size, so less detail is almost always better. That's one of the things that a lot of people who are starting to get into pixel art don't understand, and it hurts the design every time because you want to like dig in and put lots of detail and make it super impressive, but then you zoom out and you can't tell what you're looking at.
Any advice on choosing the highlight and shading colors when you're coloring to avoid
Yes.
it looking muddy or washed out?
Yes. So when I'm doing my shading choices, what I'm doing here, you'll see I select this base color, and then I'll go into the color, and if it's a shadow, I push it cooler just a little bit. I'll take this. Can you see the color selector? Because I'm focused on a window.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll take the sidebar and push it towards the cool side. I'll take it from a red purple to a slightly bluer purple, and that's a slight change. And then I just kind of like drop it down and to the right. I keep it a little extra saturated in the shadows, and that can be adjusted later. But the general rule is shadows are cooler and highlights are warmer. So you see the highlight on the top here is a slightly warmer pink, and the shadow on the bottom here is a slightly cooler purple. Lighter and darker, obviously. What makes it really muddy is if you try to rely on multiply tool, like if you really overuse the blend modes, and you don't force yourself to just rely on color theory like naturally to make it work, things can start to feel a little muddy for sure.
We got a very enthusiastic yes from that
yes.
Commenter.
All right, so next up we're gonna put some color. Her head without the without the lines looks terrifying. All right, so we're gonna stick with this kind of jumpsuity color for the middle. So imagine she's got a hoodie under a vest because she is the queen of fashion, and that's always what you should do: hoodie and vest. Little known secret. So I'm gonna use this hoodie color for the arms and the chest. The neckline. And you see here, there's not a connecting black line. Sometimes it's nice to leave it open. It feels a little more free and open in that way. Sometimes I kill the black lines altogether in certain spaces to breathe it, to make it breathe a little better. And then I think her vest should be somewhere in this zone, but maybe closer to blue and kind of, yeah.
So going back to the question on size, so you said because this is going into Unity, the pixel resolution is arbitrary. So why did you choose 24 by 24 over any other resolution?
So 24 by 24, it's a power of 2 that felt right. This was more of an experimentation when it came to how big and chunky I wanted my pixels to feel in the final product. And of course, the larger you make your canvas, the smaller your pixels are going to feel. So I spent a little time kind of doing doodles and sketches and bringing it to kind of where I thought it felt right, and then I kind of hit pause. So the 24 by 24 was specifically for the feel of it. I wanted these like really like chonky pixels, and I wanted them to feel yeah, I guess, yeah. We'll stick with chonky.
Chunky pixels. That's an official word.
Chunky pixels.
For a beginner in pixel art, what's the first move to begin the journey, and what aspect should be focused on first?
Well, the first move to begin the journey, it really depends on what you want your project to be. If you're just doing training exercises, making environment elements or bits and pieces for your own edification, you're going to want to focus on really getting the basics down, like, making sure that you learn how to make your lines feel, narrow and clean, learning how to color fill with just this tool and not rely on any of the fill tools or things that might give you a little anti-aliasing. But if you want to put together a little project or an illustration, it's very important, again, like I said, to go in and do your illustration first. Kind of get the world figured out in your head before you start drawing in pixels. Like, that's how I always work. I always do a lot of illustration work before I ever get into my pixel art. Now, once the project is moving, then I can just do things like this, where I sort of shoot from the hip and add things to the universe.
Do you ever use a palette?
I do. Now, actually, this is a fun factoid about me. I am colorblind.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's been a challenge, but the problem with being colorblind and getting into the arts is you sort of have to find ways to make things work in your own way. Yeah. And for me, building palettes sort of takes it out of the context of this color wheel, this little world here. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I pull it out of this world, my brain stops knowing what goes where and why it went there. So the way I work, and it's working for me very well, is I select directly off of my initial fills. And I make all my color choices based on those. So, I did these fills, I got these colors where I wanted them, and I'm taking all of my shading and highlights and all of my kind of like, spice colors like this blue here, and I'm using my base colors as a jumping point for that.
That is fascinating that you're able to figure that out. That's cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And not like I'm trying to get all inspirational, oh captain, my captain here, but if anybody tells you that you're not right for a thing, or you shouldn't be working on it, or like you have a thing that might be stopping you from doing it well, just tell them to shut up and do it. Do what you want. Like, don't listen to them. Because I had a lot of people in college when I was learning all this telling me that, well, you're colorblind, quit art college, you don't need to be here. Don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know you. They don't know you.
Oh, I love it. I think that's fantastic advice.
All right, so now we've gotten to the point where we see, the body and the head and the legs all in context. We're going to start making a couple little edits, because these are some super skinny legs now, I realized, which is fine. Don't ever, kick yourself for getting to a point where you need to make a couple of little adjustments. That's the name of the game. It's how it works. It's all good. And actually, I'm kind of happy. This gives me access to my my knee pose I was initially kind of wanting to use. There we go. Look at those dancing legs.
We have people commenting, cool, that's pretty amazing, dude.
All right, so we're gonna give her darker pants. We're gonna go like superhero world and like give her like the weird, like, not underwear. see how that works. So she's in the same color zone as her hoodie, but we're gonna keep the pants a little darker. And this is for two reasons. It's because one, it's never good to have the character the entire, all the same color. It just sort of bleeds together and it feels weird. But also it gives you access to a little depth of field that you wouldn't have in your pixel art otherwise. If you allow your sections to be defined by tone a little bit, then the bits and pieces of your character will sort of stand out a little better. You'll be able to tell the pieces apart. So there's that. Now I'm going to give her superhero underwear, and we're going to decide whether we like it or not on the spot.
There's a comment that she's got skinny jeans.
Oh, she got all the skinny jeans, yo. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
She's millennial 100%. All right, so for the shadow, I'm going to take it just a little bit cooler and drop it down. I'm going to keep the shadow a little bit simple on this, just so we don't start confusing our lines. So another thing that sets things apart and makes things readable when you're doing pixel art is, apart from just separating the fields with tone, you're also keeping things really light when it comes to shading. Like, there's not a lot of major contrast in the shading. because if I did that, these would turn into just conflicting groups of pixels that don't make any visual sense. And actually, I really like that. Now she's sort of like a kawaii wrestler girl, and I'm super digging it. I'm way more into this character than I should be. All right, so now let's move on to the forward arm. We can address the feet in a bit. I might leave them stocking feet because that's adorable, but who knows? So our arm has generally been some kind of a sword. So let's turn off our... Oh, and by the way, something I do also to keep myself from getting too confused. No, not that. Is the guide layers that I initially made. I'll change the color once I've done the official work on top of that, just so that I can sort of visually separate the pieces, so I'm not constantly like clicking on my guide layers. It just helps. You're a guide layer.
So with this type of work, it's not like you're painting and drawing in more of a traditional sense. It's more pixel selection.
It is.
Does the pen tablet from a precision standpoint come in handy?
Oh,
because otherwise you'd just be clicking with a mouse.
It speeds you up like crazy. Using a mouse to do this is viable but slow. And it's just not. It feels better. Like, I'm sure when people here have translated their workflow into the digital world, they noticed a bit of sort of translation lag between being in a sketchbook drawing and being on computer. And the translation lag goes even deeper when you're doing pixel art, because you're translating between drawing and like she said, pixel selecting. So anything you can do to take the middleman out of that translation lag and make things feel more natural is good, like always.
I've never thought about it in that regard. That's really helpful.
So we're gonna give her pink hand here.
Hand cramps. Carpal tunnel for sure. Yeah, with mousing, absolutely.
Or you'll murder your wrist. It'll be dead forever. You'll never get it back. I have a couple of professional friends who they do everything with a mouse, and they do good work, but I don't get it. I can't wrap my head around how or why even. I much prefer using a tablet, and it's not just because I'm working with Sense Labs, who have been super nice getting me here, but tablets in general, it's just better. Okay, so we have the arm here. Let's do a little toggling to see how we feel. Okay, that arm kind of lines up, right? Yeah, that's good. We're gonna have to drop some shadow in here to make it separate, but we'll get there. You're already wincing at the thought of doing pixel art with a mouse. Yeah, it's bad. Actually, you know what? Instead of giving her the sword pointing out, let's get a little cheeky, and we'll give her. Actually, this will be a fun moment of stepping away from the outline, just for the sake of clarity. I'm gonna go to a sort of gold, and we're gonna put just the little tip of the knife here, and actually we're gonna erase this because that's too much. We're gonna do that. There we go. Go back to this gold, put the other piece here, give her like a little hilt, and give her a little dagger. I'm gonna go to plain old. Yeah, you know what? No, I'm gonna do a blue gray for the dagger's metal. Just to make it kind of feel like it lives in the world of this drawing. And we'll keep it nice and simple. We'll do a lighter blue-gray for the edge, right? And a darker blue-gray for a little shadow right there. Hooray!
Do you have any suggestions for how to approach working with higher res pixel art for someone who's already done some small resolution work?
Oh yeah, for higher res pixel art, if you haven't started with a sketch, always start with a sketch. Like get your image in place. If you're going like true 64-bit or even higher, get your image in place to a true sketch. And it really depends on what the project is. If you're doing like 2D side scroll, like non isometric, non top down, your process will be a little bit different. But you'll also have a little more flexibility in terms of just drawing lines at that resolution, because the edge to edge rule isn't so strong when you're making the line so small already. But you're gonna have to go back there and do some selective erasing to make it feel right.
Is it possible to show the full res version?
Oh, I haven't done any of this in higher res.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I have some higher res stuff that I have on a different machine. Unfortunately, I didn't have it ready for this. I just had the illustrations, the initials.
Cool. So what sparked the desire to draw in Pixel? What moment did you think, yeah, I want to do that? I want to draw in pixels?
Yeah, I'm an old guy. I'm a
No, you're not.
I have baby face syndrome. I'm older than I look.
Baby face syndrome.
I do. I really do. And it's all right. I'm cool with it. I've come to terms. But there's just something. So I talk about this in my class, actually. There is something very unique about the pixel art style that sort of transcended the usual boundaries when it comes to, trends in art and trends in game style.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we hit a very unique period in not just in art and games, but in consumption, where the people with the means of purchase, the people with the money, which are usually the people who are making the calls when it comes to what's being sold, I didn't, as I'm sure you can tell, grow up. We kind of held on to the things that made us happy, and we made sure that those continued into the future. So we kept buying pixel art based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into the workforce proper, and we started making pixel art stuff and selling to the generation behind us. So pixel art has made a heroic leap over what would normally have been a hard stop barrier in the style acceptance. Like it broke through in a big way. And because of that, it's become somehow both modern, trendy, and old school.
Yeah.
And I adore it for that.
It's nostalgia. Yeah. It reminds me of like my dot matrix printer.
Oh yeah.
from high school.
And it's flexible. It has a lot of room for different styles, different kind of artistic ideologies to exist within the confines of pixel art, and it sort of has the benefit of immediately bringing to mind something that the viewer already loves. Like as soon as you see pixel art, you're like, oh, that feels like Zelda, or oh, pixel art, I love this and that and the other. It comes with a baked in sort of pre-made nostalgic sense of love that helps your art sort of hit the masses with a big splash in a great way.
Yeah. So you teach this course at Rutgers? Do you teach a course on pixel art?
I do not actually. At Rutgers University, I teach game design, which is if you're not in the field, it's not art, it's mechanical craftsmanship. So it's essentially creating the rule systems and structures. Yeah, there we go.
Well, I think that there is a desire to see you teaching some courses on pixel art.
I would love to.
Going back to that YouTube channel thing that you're going to get up and going.
Well, I had the experience that a lot of people have when they're doing YouTube or Twitch streaming, where I got going and I had a lot of fun. I did it for all the right reasons. I promise. It was just something that I really wanted to do because since getting into teaching at the college level, I've become enamored with teaching. I adore it. But I didn't have a lot of people showing up. Getting the word out is hard for someone who's not very I don't have a social media presence. And so, I had other projects come up and I sort of let it sit down by the wayside, but it's something that I feel very strongly about and I would love to teach. So if I could find a way to get a few people on board, I would happily do some canned lessons, or stream it, or whatever people want.
That's awesome.
It's just finding the time,
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. We have our kawaii weird hooded ninja girl pink thing. So let's get a little bit of shading in here. Now I'm going to use I'm going to select with the arrow tool to make sure I'm going on the right layers here. If you don't know how to do that, that's how you do that. You right click the layer you want to get into. I never have auto select on because that just turns into chaos for me. Auto select, like I always end up just like dragging the wrong thing somewhere, or like erasing something, or it drives me crazy. All right. So
somebody commented that they think pixel art is like a classic, and it's both classic and timeless. No matter how good game engines are, pixel games have their own charm.
And pixel games, you're 100% right with that. Oh my god, like pixel games will never not have a place, I think, in the meta of game art and art in general. I'm going to take one more darker tone. And it's important when you're doing this stuff not to overdo. You should only have like 2 or 3 tones of shade, and one tone of highlight, so you don't muddy it up. But this is getting a little hard to read, so I'm going to go ahead and go into the top here and drop some real dark shades in, just to set everything apart.
Another commenter says she needs a name, so everybody should put their ideas on what we should name her in the comments.
Yes, poll for name, 100%.
Poll for names. Let's do it.
Do it. I love it.
Let's see if I can figure out how to create a poll.
All right, there's that.
Oh, I'd have to get some options first.
Oh, that's right. Somebody drop options in there.
Give me some options, people.
I mean, she is 100% a hero. There's no doubt about that. We just have to know what the name of the hero is. Ah, there's the shield layer. Let's get these separated. Pixella. I love it.
Pixie, that's cute. Pixella. Kind of like a play on Cruella.
Yep.
She's bad and fierce. Ninji.
I like Ninji. I like Pixella. I like Zenthrama.
Ooh, Aria.
That's intense.
I have a friend's daughter whose name's Aria.
So
I can't remember what it means. It does mean something. Peggy. Okay.
So I'm 100% into Pixella. Aria is great. Ninji is fantastic. Then Zenthrama is hardcore. Let's do that. Pank sounds almost Miyazaki, like a Miyazaki character. Yeah, all right. Let's put those in.
All right. I'm going to do the poll.
And you know what? I'm going to go back to our dagger and make that highlight white because it's not popping yet.
Say my name. Just tell me if you can name that movie.
Oh no. Oh, you're gonna I know what you're saying and I'm forgetting the name.
Say my name.
Why am I forgetting?
Oh, Belle, that's a good one.
All right. So we have her, and while we're doing this name, I'm going to switch over to this just to give you a bit on terrain stuff. We're going to do a little bit of work on a wall. So as you see here, this is a wall file with all the bits and pieces of a cube that have been unwrapped and ready for the Unity guy. And we're going to work on making a single tile. Now here, I do actually use a little bit of a color reference, but I choose all these colors in advance. And I work horizontally. So essentially, the thing right here is going to be one brick color, and then these are the shade and the highlight that relate to that color. This will be another brick color, shade and highlight that relate to that brick color, and then this is the line color. So we want to create something like this as quickly as possible, and making bricks that tile properly are really, really important. So this is where the actual size of your canvas comes into account. So we have a 64 by 64 pixel canvas, which means we're going to be doing a little bit of division to understand how many lines we're drawing and how far apart they are. So the bricks are shorter than they are wide, so we're going to need more lines across than we have going up and down. And we are going to start with our base color. So we'll do this nice simple brick right there, and then we'll get our line color, and I'll show you how this works. So I did the shadows, highlights, gradients. Oopsie doopsie. I need a layer for my lines. So I already cheated, did the math, so I didn't have to waste your time doing it. 64 divided into 8 lines, which would be how many I want to go up, is 16. So that means that we're going to draw one line here, and then we're going to duplicate it 8 times with 16 pixels between each line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm sorry, with 8 pixels between each. And just keep doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so on and so forth. When you do this enough, you start to be able to eyeball these things. Like, I don't have to really count. I'm like, I know they're like 1 pixel off. My brain goes, ah, and I have to fix it. And then I take those lines, I merge them into one layer so that I can keep track of them. And I go for my my horizontal. Now this is the one that I want less of because these bricks are wider than they are tall. So we're going to make one vertical line, and we're going to count 16 pixels between each. So 1, 2, 3.
So we have a tie between Aria and Xanthrama. So maybe we'll have to do Xantharia.
Ooh.
Unless somebody out there is going to vote.
It's not bad. That's not bad at all.
So Aria and Xanthrama. And we've got about 5 more minutes, just a heads up on
Yeah,
that.
I'm just going to give them the basics on how to cheat on tiling things.
Nice.
So this is the horizontal lines for the bricks, and I'm going to tap them over a little bit so we have a little bit of room on each side, so it doesn't look like, you know, the line for the brick is just sort of like there, like on the edge.
What's the keyboard shortcut to move a pixel line up?
Oh, so I was just holding on a PC, it's Alt and arrow key. So if you're on, you have to make sure that you're on the selector tool, so V. And then you just hit Alt and over in whichever direction you want to copy it, and then release Alt. Otherwise, you'll keep copying and copying and copying. All right, so this is the hack for making bricks. Super simple. So bricks are an alternating line situation. So I'm gonna delete one. Yeah, wait. My brain is doing something stupid here. Okay, yeah, I'm doing it right. I'm just making big old chunky bricks. And then alternate. So delete opposing lines and keep going. And you end up with this nice opposing brick pattern. Yeah.
Behold the pink warrior, Xanthrama. That's her name.
That is her name.
That's her name, people. That was fun. I've never done a poll on one of these today, so that was exciting.
Good times. All right, so you can see we have the beginnings of our brick here. Now we're going to go back to our little color key, and we're going to find this other color of brick. So I had 2 colors chosen because you can't have every brick the same color because it just feels weird. Then I'm going to go to my base layer, make a new color layer, and start making odd colored bricks. And now the trick to making a seam repeat satisfyingly, you'll see here I'm making this side the same color as the brick that it will run up to. Imagine that this will be shifting over and connecting on the edge. So whatever it ends with on one side, it has to begin with on the other, if that makes any sense at all.
It does.
So then we go into our shadow layer and we start digging around. I'll take my shadows for the base color and start throwing in a little bit here. Nice and simple. Little
Oh, and it was
corners
the
here and there.
never-ending story. Say my name.
Oh my! Of course it was. Now you'll see here that I'm leaving a little bit of space every now and then. These aren't like super smooth. There's gaps, and there's a reason for that. Because when you see the finished piece, there's a lot of irregularity in each brick to make it feel natural. Now these are smaller bricks than I made for the other one, but you know that irregularity in the lines, like these edges here have some of them have little dots to make them look rounded, some don't. The highlights are all over the place. It gives it a sense of randomness and naturalness that you really need for the repeat to feel good.
That looks awesome.
So yeah, we are out of time, but we got started on the wall. Who knows? I might do a stream at some point doing some pixel art. But
yeah,
the most important thing is we have Xantharia right here.
The pink warrior.
Oh, she's awesome. I love her. Holy cow!
See her.
Yeah, she turned out good. So she'll live with all these other guys. We got Tank. We got the Lich. We got the blank. We have our little Jason character. We have Future Warrior, Bone Knight, and Red Gold. So she now exists, and we will add her to the game.
Yay! Are there any other questions? We've got maybe one more minute. This was super interesting. Let's see. All right. I'm going to share my screen. See if I can do it. Yes. So everybody, thank you so much. Be sure to look in the description. We have hidden scavenger hunt goodies in all of the descriptions of our artists that we're featuring. So we've got some amazing prizes. George doesn't have an active YouTube channel now, but it sounds like he's going to get that up and going. So
let me look it up. Hold on.
Be sure to check him out. This will be recorded and put on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it again. And if you are interested in working on a SenseLab tablet like George has, be sure to use that Lightbox US promo code on our eStore. All right. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.